Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast.
Nothing about business happens in a silo. Everything is totally interrelated and interconnected, and your team dynamics, working with startups like you all do on operating agreements. So many founders skip that stage, or they kind of, they're like, table it. We'll come back to it. They'll make their way super deep in. And, if you're starting a business with friends or family, fortunately stuff ends up getting so sticky because you didn't set those expectations early on. And if they had taken that time, even to do the disc assessments, to understand all right, we have met, here's what our company is. We've done the customer discovery. We think this is who we want to target. Here's our value proposition. Here's our messaging, done all the business stuff. Okay. To develop this product or service, and operate this business on a day-to-day, you really need to sit down and understand in that operating agreement, who's really in charge of what, who's key decision makers, who's leading which sides of the business, how are we balancing that zone of genius to get the most, value out of each of our time spent? How do we work in our communication styles and our leadership styles together? And how does that kind of all come together to create this beautiful thing that is a functioning and successful business?
Yeah. So Cenzo Caronna, I know we kind of jumped into it.
Yeah, we jumped right into it.
Yeah. But that was cool. I mean, I think it was good to get a little bit of background of who you are and, where you came from. It's just unique that you have the personality of an entrepreneur and somebody who wants to support that community, but you have a bioengineering degree and you've done all the things you just talked about doing. But now you work for the Tammany Corporation, right? St. Tammany Corporation?
St. Tammany Corporation.
St. Tammany Corporation. Yeah. And you run the startup part of that business, right? And so what is the name of the group you're a part of within that St. Tammany Corporation?
Yeah, so it's an initiative under St. Tammany Corporation in partnership with Washington Economic Development and Tangible Economic Development. So 3 economic development organizations coming together to sprout up STartUp Northshore, which is an initiative that I lead and project manage. Yeah.
And y'all, on an annual basis, you are getting the startups from this area together, helping them grow their business and promoting what they're doing, right? In a nutshell?
Yeah.
Yep. And you've been doing it for how long?
So we're going on 2 years. We'll hit 2 years in August this year. So right up on it. But for those 2 years, we're looking to support businesses kind of at any stage, whether you're idea on the back of a napkin that you just made up or you've been in business for 15 years. We're trying to help support you through mentorship, education, networking, and access to capital.
Yeah. And you're one of the founders of the organization, or not? Well, you would be brought on to take the idea of STartUp Northshore and to get to where it's at now, where it's going, right?
Yeah. So the press release that announced STartUp Northshore exists, I was hired 2 weeks later.
Nice.
So kind of from the beginning, St. Tammany Corporation, they had spent a couple years, or at least 18 months kind of before hiring me and announcing the plans for STartUp Northshore, doing a lot of research and kind of surveying the business ecosystem and best practices. And we want to build something connected that's a central hub for entrepreneurs to gain access to mentorship and network. They had spent 18 months kind of planning for that. And then right when they launched it, announced STartUp Northshore, hired me 2 weeks later. And we were kind of had this blank canvas to build this ecosystem to help support our businesses.
And so, and you told me the story about how you got introduced to the CEO of St. Tammany Corporation, right? And y'all you weren't planning on doing this, right? You were in a whole different space. You just graduated?
So I was looking to move back to Louisiana at the time that I met Chris Massengills, our CEO at St. Tammany Corporation.
Yeah.
And how he and I met and I ultimately ended up in this is pretty serendipitous. It's funny.
Yeah.
I can tell that story.
Yeah, tell the story. That was a good story.
Yeah, so just chronologically, graduated 2017, started with Bioaesthetics, nipple company, spent 5 years with them, moved to North Carolina after the first 4 months, so spent a little over 4 years in North Carolina, My wife is from the Mandeville area too. We both grew up here our whole lives. Both of our families are still here. A lot of our friends are still here. She moved to Madison, Wisconsin for a bit, which was interesting to go and visit up there. Joined me for the last 4 years in North Carolina. So now we fast forward, it's like early to mid 2022. I think like spring 2022.
Yeah.
And so, we've been there for a while. We're kind of interested in moving back. She has the real like genesis was like she was kind of in transition with her job. Her former company that she was with had all this changeover, didn't really enjoy the job anymore. So she was out in the market again and looking for stuff. And so we were like, look, if you get a job in North Carolina, we'll stay. If you get a job in Louisiana, we'll move back. Both our families are there, not a problem. So she gets one in New Orleans. We're coming home. I'm working with bioaesthetics. I have my idea for my own startup at this time that I'm working on and starting to put like some of the foundations in place for. And so I stick on part-time with bioaesthetics when I move back. And when I was moving back, I'm starting this company and I'm looking for like accelerator programs or like a network of other startups to like get immersed in and involved in and get mentorship and guidance. Cause I come from a bioengineering background. I don't know anything about business.
Yeah.
I just have an idea for a product that I want to build. I've been in startups, so I know what it takes to like run and operate on a small team and wear every single hat underneath an organization, but I've never started a company.
I don't know what that's like. Do you know what that's like?
Y'all know exactly what it's like. And so, we come back down. I join the Idea Institute program, which is something we run now on the North Shore that I'll tell you about. But at the time, I come across the Idea Village in New Orleans because I'm just like Googling like New Orleans area, like entrepreneur communities, whatever.
And they have a great website. They do a good job sucking you in.
Oh yeah. They like really roped me in because it was like really energizing. It's very like tech forward. It's very innovative. Like if you're starting something really interesting and scalable, like technology business, like come be a part of this community. You're going to meet other folks trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. And
you can tap into this highly energized, like, it's called Silicon Bayou. That's Valley.
Cute.
So Silicon Bayou.
Cute.
And so yeah, it was just like very coincidentally, I come across them like, okay, cool. And then I find out some of the programming they run, Idea Institute. It's for companies that are still at idea stage, like very early on. It's hybrid virtual, so you can access it on Zoom. We'll meet once a week. Program starts in like 2 weeks. I was like, this is clutch. Like, this is perfect. I have an idea. I'm trying to start a business. It's tech. And I can do some of the programming virtual. And then when I move back, I can do all the in-person stuff.
Yeah.
And so at the end of it, I go through this process. I get finally back moved to Mandeville. Really don't know like what I'm trying to do other than, by my time with bioaesthetics, I'm kind of like transitioning out. Only part-time with them, just starting a company, like not getting a check from that. So I'm like, buying a house, trying to like, support myself and my wife and everything and, pull my weight. And so I was like, all right, probably look for a full-time job, kind of after this, and I can still keep my side gig going while I'm trying to build it. So at the end of Idea Institute, there's always a pitch competition. So I was fortunate to get selected to pitch my startup at the end of it. So I'm going into it and preparing for it. And it's this big public event, right? Like anybody can come. I'm looking to like make the most out of this networking opportunity that I have and meet folks there. And so I'm looking at the judges are like the only people that they name as far as like people that are going to be there. And I see Chris Massengill, CEO of St. Tammany Corporation. And I was like, I don't know what St. Tammany Corporation does, but I know he's from St. Tammany. I'm from St. Tammany. So let me go and introduce myself. And met him at this pitch event. Had a very quick conversation, just like, hey, I'm Cenzo, one of the contestants that's pitching tonight. Great to meet you. See you from St. Tammany. Just kind of like asking about St. Tammany Corporation. And he's like, Economic Development Organization for the North Shore for St. Tammany Parish. This is really cool. It's a great community that the Idea Village is built here. We actually want to do something like this on the North Shore. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, let's stay in touch. I'll give you my card. I'll take yours. And if you ever host events like this or do for programming, like, let me know. I'll come in the tent. And that was like kind of it. Like that was the quick interaction. Speed up a couple months later, all of a sudden, like, they're doing all this research. I had no idea. I'm looking for a job. actually trying to get one in a similar role with the Idea Village at the time because they had an opening.
Yeah.
And, I needed a job before the Idea Village was ready to hire for that position. And I was like, but this is the one that I really want. And they were like, reach out to St. Tammany Corporation. I think they might be hiring for something like this. And, lo and behold, it was not posted anywhere. I couldn't find anything about the job. I just reached back out to Chris.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, let's schedule some time to meet. And so we just had a very informal conversation. It was like, we're trying to build a support ecosystem for startups here. We need somebody to lead it. We're really looking for an entrepreneur to run this thing because you kind of understand some of the obstacles that you're going to face when starting a business.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, raised my hand. I was like, look, I'm actually looking for a full-time job. I got a startup and we continue to run it. He very much encouraged me to continue to do that. And we just kind of happily, like, serendipitously met and started STartUp Northshore, probably a month or so after that, 6 weeks later.
Very cool. So I think that some of the people who may be watching this don't necessarily know what St. Tammany Corporation does. And I know that you're an initiative within that organization. So is St. Tammany organization a nonprofit? Is it a government-backed entity? Like, tell us about St. Tammany Corporation.
Yeah, so St. Tammany Corporation is the lead economic development organization for St. Tammany Parish. And so we're actually a subdivision of the state, so we're a public entity. We're not directly tied to the parish government. We're a separate subdivision.
Gotcha.
And we are tasked by the state of Louisiana to push forward economic development within St. Tammany Parish.
Gotcha. Does every parish have a corporation structure the same way?
Not everyone. So there's multiple different types of structures that an economic development organization can take. Some are private, some are nonprofit, some are private-public partnerships, kind of like we are. So we have this public subdivision of the state formalization, but we also work with private industry donors and sponsors and corporate partners to fund some of our nonprofit initiatives like STartUp Northshore.
Gotcha.
And so, St. Tammany Corporation does a tremendous amount of work that I am just one of a team of like 10 members of St. Tammany Corporation. Our whole entire existence is to, push forward and allow economic prosperity in our community to thrive within St. Tammany Parish.
One of the stories that Chris was telling at the economic update that we had a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago is he was talking a lot about creating place for big business to come into St. Tammany Parish and creating work sites and potential pads and sites for businesses to build their operations here, build buildings, bring in more people to pay tax dollars and to grow the parish and this whole region, right? Because when you get to something that size, usually working with the neighboring parishes to make sure that, the infrastructure between the parishes is something that can support somebody coming in, a big company to come into this area. So I thought that was interesting and the amount of impact that y'all have or influence you have on those people coming over here and how y'all are involved in the dialogue and making sure that you're almost like a liaison between the parish and the businesses that want to come in here or the businesses that are here that are trying to grow. From what I took from the conversation.
No, that's absolutely true. It's all about, formation, retention and expansion and attraction. Yeah. So like with STartUp Northshore, we invest a lot in that formation and retention efforts. So businesses have the opportunity to start here and thrive here. And as they're scaling and growing, we can retain that talent and operation in our ecosystem.
Yeah. So from STartUp Northshore, obviously, bringing in the resources from like the other businesses. Cause I was a part of a coaching opportunity. I got to meet with one of the businesses that were within y'all's system and got to have a great conversation with her on what she was doing with her business. So, and I know it's probably a wide scope of things that y'all have ideas to do or that y'all are doing. So if you're a startup in St. Tammany Parish, what value do you bring to those startups?
Yeah. And I'll even expand it to Washington and Tangipahoa Parish.
Okay, cool.
That regional mindset of focus of the North Shore as a collective is going to be a lot stronger by working more closely together than we would be independently. And so, our pitch to these businesses, not just those that are really early stage, but even if you have an idea again and you're working to start this business, we connect you to education, curriculum, and mentorship and access to capital. So if you come to us with just an idea, we'll help you go through Idea Institute's the program you were talking about in that mentorship opportunity. Yeah, it's a 10-week program where we cover the customer discovery process, defining what your value proposition is. How do you fit amongst your competitors? How do you market to them? What revenue model should you run? How do you model your financials? How do you pitch your business and ultimately gain that access to capital? We got a lot of great partnerships and relationships with local lenders, so small business lenders, our banks, so you can get debt financing. But we also have a lot of great relationships with the angel and investment funds. So if you want to go an equity-based investment route, we take those businesses in. We kind of understand the investment thesis of those angel groups, and what stage of business, and kind of how do you put together your investment package to go and present your business idea to these group of investors to be able to secure, $100,000, $250,000, maybe you're raising $1 million. And so, for those entrepreneurs that are really good at their craft and very passionate about what they're working on, but maybe don't come from a background of business and don't really understand that side of the aisle. We run these programs. Many of them are at no charge. Again, because we're kind of this public-private partnership. It's all about community reinvestment. And so our services generally, it's free to take advantage of them. And if we have a fee for a program, there's oftentimes scholarships that are available. So we don't want funding to get in the way of your access to be successful. Because if you're successful here as a business, the community is successful. And ultimately, most jobs are created from new business formations.
Lauren just gave a hour and a half presentation on the exact list of things you just talked about to a bunch of real estate agents who, historically and notoriously don't operate their business as a business. They generally are a person doing a job. They just happen to be a 1099, have their own LLC. They don't really understand what it means to scale and grow and to bring on support and leverage and identify your value proposition, like you said, and your ideal client, so that you can intentionally operate a business that can run without you and maybe grow without you if you really get to that level. And so, we see all the time businesses come in with a great idea, and the culture here is so great in not only St. Tammany, but in Louisiana as a whole. But most businesses just don't know how to get out of their own way or take that step of moving from what's a small business to a medium or large small business, because most of the time people don't really realize that qualifying as a small business is what? What do you qualify as a small business?
Everything that's in, no, I'm kidding. It depends. There's so many different ways that you can look at what small business is.
But you always talk about a revenue threshold. Like you're making.
Oh, you're thinking of ours. So our revenue threshold is under $30 million a year.
Yeah. So
which that's a wide net.
Right? Yeah. $100
million.
And people don't have that mindset. And I guess that's where, I'm so passionate about having them understand exactly what type of businesses can be here and how they can thrive and still exist here. Because we have so many small businesses that are truly small businesses. You really can't even put them in the category of a business because they can't transition into a legacy, right? And so if I can help that happen for those family members, for the person that built that for 30 years, and the success and the support that the community has seen, because I feel like that's the piece that's often missed, is that small business that's doing really well, maybe hasn't scaled to employ 50 or 250 people in our community, but they pay taxes, and more importantly, they're giving back to every one of these nonprofits in the community, right? Yeah. And so that's part of that ecosystem that people ignore to an extent. And when we start to lose some of these businesses, it does hurt and harm, our local economy. So I just am very passionate about getting into those businesses, helping it scale, helping them give something that they can hand on to somebody else that's been working in the business for 20 years, right? It may not be a family member. They may be on to do something bigger and better and, a new startup idea, but they have somebody that's been in that business for 20 years that has another 20 years left to dedicate to the community, right? And so if we can help support that or help new ideas come to our parish, then eventually we have better community, better families, better quality of life, right? Because again, no one looks at Southeast Louisiana and thinks business. They just don't, right? You think outdoors. We're outdoor paradise, which I love. I partake in that every single day. I live on the water. Like Jared makes fun of me because he's like, you're a walking commercial for Slidell. But I truly am. Like, I adore my community, and I was very intentional about coming back and living here. But they don't think business. So if we could just change that mindset, right? Through organizations like yours, through the training that we're doing with our law firm, we'll be in a much better place. we can truly transition that idea.
Yeah. And so, like the raising money and providing capital and all that stuff's great, but like from a coaching standpoint, the 10-week program that y'all do, tell us about that and how that program works and how a business that may feel like they want to get back to the community can get involved in that. Because it was very simple for me to do what I did. I wanted to do more, and I think y'all can provide more opportunity for that going forward. But tell us about that 10-week program.
Yeah, no, well, y'all are awesome. I mean, there's so much like alignment between what we're both trying to do. And so if we can get really passionate individuals who care about this community and are dedicated, together, we're going to be able to make a serious impact. Yeah. And especially seeing the type of response that we've seen from our mentors when we were first kind of starting this. It's like, me as the entrepreneur residence, I can perform a lot of one-on-one technical assistance with businesses, but like, I'm not going to be an expert in every industry. I'm not going to be an expert in every walk of life. I'm not going to be an expert in every type of business or stage. And so that requires a lot of investment from a mentor network. And so having y'all involved has been super instrumental and very thankful for that. So thank y'all for dedicating that time. I know it's like,
good job,
Jared. For all of that.
Yeah.
Shout out, Jared. But, that's instrumental to the program. And so what you're talking about, the way that we kind of model that sometimes is through Idea Institute Northshore. And so Idea Institute Northshore is the inaugural program that we launched. So like taking it back to when STartUp Northshore started, like we announced STartUp Northshore exists in I say we, I wasn't even on the team yet, but Tammany Corporation announced, all right, STartUp Northshore exists. We're partnering with the Idea Village to bring some of their tried and true programming to the North Shore. Part of that partnership is Idea Institute. And so we're bringing the Idea Institute program to the North Shore and calling it Idea Institute North Shore. And then at some point they announced that I was hired. I think it might have been a separate press release. But thankfully I'd gone through Idea Institute. Like that all happened within like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And thankfully I'd gone through the Idea Institute program. So I knew kind of the ins and outs. I knew what it was like to go through it as a founder. And now I get to go through it on the other side as kind of a mentor and facilitator to the North Shore. And so again, it's a 10-week program. Now it actually really happens over the course of 12 weeks because we build in kind of one extra week in the middle that's like where there's no Zoom session, there's no curriculum, there's no worksheets. Like everything you learned over the past few weeks, like go out into the world and test these new ideas that you've learned and then come back and take that time to kind of catch up if you missed a session, but really go out and utilize all these new skills in practice and then come back, kind of refine and iterate on your idea, and then we'll go forward. So it happens over 12 weeks, but it's 10 classes. We meet for an hour and a half every week. It's led by Dr. Felipe Massa, who is the professor of entrepreneurship at the Center for Entrepreneurship at Loyola. So he's a Loyola professor.
Cool.
Developed this programming for MBA students. The Idea Village approached him and was like, hey, can we package this curriculum as an accelerator program so more businesses can tap into it, not just the students? So they developed it. They launched it in 2019. And again, we partnered with them to bring it here with Idea Institute Northshore. So over the course of this 10 weeks, we meet first session working on your idea. So a lot of these companies that come in are kind of idea stage, even though a lot of the practices that you learn, I think are really relevant to any business. Even ones that have been in business for a while that never spent that time to like zoom out and work on the business instead of heavily entrenched in it. Like, working
90%
60,
of the businesses
80%.
around here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's honestly so many of them, and sometimes it's, this is their livelihood. They've got to be able to support themselves. So they're really working in it day to day as the operator, as the CEO, as the front of house, like salesperson, like, they're doing everything. And so, those skills that you learn kind of taking it back to first principles in this program are great for any business, but kind of focused on idea stage companies, early stage companies. So walk them through that customer discovery, define exactly who your ideal customer is. What is your unique value proposition that you offer to them? How is that different from other competitors in the market? Who are your competitors? How big is this opportunity? If you were to get every single customer that you wanted, like how much money could you make?
Yeah.
How much do you need to charge for your product or service? Like what revenue model do you need to choose? So how do you charge it? Not just how much do you charge?
Yeah.
When do you charge for it? It's very critical too. And Yeah, understanding financial modeling, something that's really difficult, and it's stuff that like people do not want to sit down and do. It's the most, boring and tedious and partially scary part of the process, where you got to really look at your books and make sure, like, here's all, like, just the basic, like, how does your expense stack up to your revenue? What are you making, and how much is everything costing you?
We have so
Just
many
that
good
basic
resources for that in St. Tammany Parish. There's a really good amount of CPA firms that we match with our entrepreneurs that support them in that level, because a lot of times that idea person, right, or that service person is not the person that needs to be running the books. They need to have an understanding of it, right? But we have a great amount of resources, I feel like we do in St. Tammany Parish, that I'm very comfortable partnering with. I always look at any of our bigger business clients, that holistic approach that you need your advisor, your CPA, and your lawyer. If we're all on the same page, you're going to be doing good.
Yeah. One of the things that we also talk about, and Lauren talks a lot about it, I kind of stumbled into it. She's a lot more intentional about everything she does than I am, but I had stumbled into the idea of like self-discovery when it comes to the personality assessments and understanding what your talents and gifts are naturally, so that you can lean into those things and know based on that how you can provide leverage for yourself. And, a lot of people don't want to get into the numbers in the book because they're idea type of people, and those types of people are not usually the ones that want to sit down for maybe hours and run through QuickBooks and make sure that your expenses and your income are accurate, and that you're going to get the tax benefits you can from your business, things like that. And so we use the DISC assessment as a personality assessment that we use. And one of the first things that we have are any employee that we're going to hire, any partner that we're kind of coaching up around business, is we make sure that they take the DISC assessment to understand their natural tendencies and know, based on that, kind of once you build out your process for your business, what is going to be the areas in which you are going to spend your time and energy focusing on, and then what are you going to either leverage out from a third party or bringing somebody in your organization that can support you in that way. It's the idea of like taking the things that you're really good at and that you enjoy doing and focusing on those, as opposed to doing the other things that you're not necessarily good at and you don't enjoy doing, and making sure that you can offload those things. Because the point of business is to do the things that you love doing with people that you love doing it with. I mean, most people kind of miss that whole point. If you know your value proposition, you know what your skills are, and you build processes out like Lauren teaches people how to do, then you end up doing and enjoying the things that you're putting all your energy in, because you're doing the things that you're good at with the people that you like doing them with.
Yeah, you get that freedom to work on the things that you really care about, which is going to have a greater return on, the end value of what your product is. Like, you are putting yourself in your zone of genius within your organization. And that DISC assessment is really cool. And like getting multiple team members to do it and figure out like even communication styles between different, perspectives and team members. Like sometimes that's really tough to navigate. Like, especially if you've got, salespeople and tech people that are likely not going to have the same interpersonal skills and communication styles.
Yeah. If there's a hill Lauren's going to die on, let's be that one.
Yeah.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll do a retreat within the whole organization, teach people how to communicate with one another. Everybody in our organization knows when they have a problem, they come to me, they want to complain about someone. I immediately respond, did you read their DISC? Did you compare it to yours? It's a tool. And we honestly, we let everybody in the organization see each other's, right? So when you're having that problem, you can see exactly where that conflict is. A lot of times it's just your lack of awareness because you're only in control of yourself. Yeah. And if you adjust that side, it's like the marriage, right? You hear people say it's 50-50. It's never 50-50. You got to bring 100 and 100 on either side. Same thing happens in business. And so when I'm helping businesses scale as well, that step of going through the DISC assessment before we get started so that they could truly understand one another and the workings of the organizations and why people annoy one another and why other people support one another, you could watch the shift in the room entirely in that perspective change.
It's an active process sometimes, right? It's not going to always be natural, but to sit the team down and I think to, open up everybody's different personality traits and the way that they're wired to each other, they can always refer back to it. It's like, oh, actually, like I need to change my communication style and maybe some of my habits so we can both meet each other somewhere in the middle.
But there's even a big graph, like there's a visual too of a graph, a circle wheel, and you can take everybody's assessment and plot it on that wheel. And you can see there's a lot of things that happen when you do that, right? If you work on a team and you find that you're kind of hitting a glass ceiling, if you look at it, generally you'll have people that kind of migrate to certain areas on the wheel. And ideally, if you're running an organization that is functioning and is I guess to a point where they need it, you can have people all across the graph because they're all doing parts of the
Supporting
business
one another.
you know, and then there's that, or they find that they just didn't realize that the person that they're struggling with just tick differently than they do, and they perceive what you're doing and how you act differently. Like, perfect example is like, you know, if somebody wants to come in and have a conversation with me and they want to talk about how we can improve the business or an operation or a process, I'll wipe the whole calendar clean and sit down and talk to them all day. But if somebody walks in and wants to just talk about what they did on Saturday night, I'm like, why are you standing in my office right now? I'm gonna get something done. But like, a lot of our staff enjoys the relationship between each other,
Yeah.
and they want to talk about that kind of stuff. So I have to like remind myself to sit and listen to people and enjoy the conversation a little bit, as opposed to constantly going 100 miles an hour. But some other people have to realize at a certain point in my day, I need to like actually get some work done, or I'm going to lose my mind. So like, it's good to understand those things about people that you're working with. And so that self-discovery phase of business is one of the things that we really focus on early on when we're advising businesses, because that's the foundation of operating with a team, on top of identifying what your value set is and your purpose and your why, to know why y'all are all coming together. Even, you know, if you might have the right people, but if you don't have a common purpose or a common set of values, you're going to struggle as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like such a great point, because everything, nothing about business happens in a silo. Everything is totally interrelated and interconnected, and your team dynamics, working with startups like you all do on operating agreements. So many founders skip that stage, or they kind of, they're like, table it, we'll come back to it. They'll make their way super deep in. And, if you're starting a business with friends or family, like, fortunately, stuff ends up getting so sticky because you didn't set those expectations early on. And if they had taken that time, even to do the disc assessments, to understand, like, all right, we have met, here's what our company is, we've done the customer discovery, we think this is who we want to target, here's our value proposition, here's our messaging, like, done all the business stuff. Okay, to develop this product or service, like, and operate this business on a day-to-day, you really need to sit down and understand in that operating agreement, like, who's really in charge of what, who's key decision makers, who's leading which sides of the business, how are we balancing that zone of genius to get the most, value out of each of our time spent. How do we work in our communication styles and our leadership styles together? And how does that kind of all come together to create this beautiful thing that is a functioning and successful business?
Yeah. So I derailed the conversation when you got
it's all good
on Lauren's passion there. The 10-week program, right?
Yep.
So first of it's like kind of understanding their ideal client, their target audience, understanding the financial. So that's the first day, or does it kind of expand from there?
So we cover each of those components week by week. And so, we break everything up, and we kind of follow, looking back at the programming, it kind of follows up with a business plan, or we really look at a business model canvas now. We follow a more lean startup methodology than maybe a more traditional business plan would be, especially for these idea stage companies, right? Like, everything about your business is so iterative. Like, everything's going to change. Some of the best advice or feedback that I've gotten, and I try to encourage all of our entrepreneurs, especially at this early stage, to think about, is like, you got really 3 critical things that are driving what you need to solve during this program right now that are the most important things. And we cover them in the first few weeks of the program. Is, all right, thinking about your customer and the problem. Like, does this problem that you propose exist out in the world? Does it actually exist? Are there real people out there that are having this problem? Are there enough of them that are having this problem that this could be a real business? If you can't figure out the customer and the problem first, you have to focus on that. Okay, Now comes in your solution. That's the third component of this little matrix that you need to solve. Does your solution actually solve whatever proposed problem that this proposed customer is having? If the answer is no, you need to work on the problem. You need to work on the solution. Like, you don't just take your solution and be like, oh, let me retrofit this to maybe a different type of customer or maybe a different type of problem out in the world. No, of the 3 things that we talk about, the customer, the problem, and the solution, like, the thing that is the most malleable that you should really be thinking about changing is what you're proposing your solution is. Like, the customer and the problem are going to exist no matter what. Your solution can be changed. And so,
they're out of your control.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest totally component that I'm trying to teach everybody when I go through these programs is you can only control what's in your control. So everything else that has variables, cool. How can you work around those? Control you. Starting with awareness and then starting with whatever your solution is to the problem.
Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, like those are stuck. They're not changing. That customers having that problem, whether your solution helps them or not.
Yeah.
And then like, you have to go a little bit further and it's like, okay, if your solution solves it, but people aren't going to pay for it, you still don't have a business. So over this 10 weeks, we kind of build up from there and we start to fill out kind of those 9 building blocks of a business model canvas, which are essentially the building blocks of a business plan. It's just all on one page. We have them build it out with sticky notes where you're defining your customer, your marketing, your messaging, like what channels are you, social media, are you direct mail, are you pop-up booths, are you going to conventions, like what is your sales strategy, what are your costs, what are your revenue?
That would be Jared's answer.
All the marketing.
I mean,
as soon as you get to marketing, we're going to do it all.
Cast a wide net early on.
Yeah,
and then,
streak into the quad.
As we're working through that customer discovery process, like we're going to figure out what your customer acquisition costs is in every single one of those channels. And if we see one costs you a lot less money to get a new customer on board, and that customer is sticking around, so the lifetime value is really high, all right, we're going to lean into that. We're not going to totally abandon the other ones if we're still getting some people to bite, but let's do some things that are systematic. And so helping them through that process to put those systems in place where it's like, they otherwise didn't have to come up with that themselves.
Yeah. And so how does people get involved in the program? Like how do they, if I have a startup business and I want to get involved with STartUp Northshore, what do I do?
Yeah, so first thing I would say is go to startupnorthshore.com. You'll find my contact information, like totally reach out to me. I'll get you connected. We can work together, kind of like resource navigate what program is the right fit for you, what mentors maybe are the right ones to meet up with, when's our next networking session. We've got Facebook and LinkedIn, STartUp Northshore, same thing with St. Tammany Corporation. You could see all types of updates and stuff there. ID Institute Northshore runs twice a year in the spring and fall. We just finished the spring 2024 cohort last week. We just had a pitch competition. We had, I think, so it's ID Institute now. Idea Village started it back in 2019. When we partnered with them to expand it, they were kind of trying to do this hub and spoke model. So they were trying to build maybe like a more super connected, super regional entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so we were the first partner to expand ID Institute programming. We were one of the spokes. They were the hub in this model.
Cool.
And so they have one in Baton Rouge, and then they have one in Houma-Thibodaux in the bioregion. And so we all go through this process together. The different partners have like in-person networking and other mentors like closer to home to make it a little more accessible in each market. And so we had, I think, close to 100 companies go through this past spring, like across all 4 markets.
Nice.
Only 5 were selected to pitch at pitch night because there's this, you don't just get to go up and pitch. You got to be cream of the crop. And 2 of those companies were from the North Shore.
Nice.
So, like way punching above our weight, just like continues to affirm we've got incredibly talented, educated, innovative, resourceful people that it's really on us, especially as the economic development organization, but as successful service providers and entrepreneurs in the market, to give them opportunities to be successful and to put our hands back down. Because I know I had a lot of people bring me up the ladder, and so it's on me to put that ladder back down to help them up. And so ID Institute's a great program to get involved in, whether you're a mentor and or a service provider, maybe you're a subject matter expert and you want to work with startups, getting involved is great. So if you got an idea,
the same way the people want to get involved as a business, they can get in touch with you guys from the
for mentors.
From the
mentorship side. Yeah, as a subject matter expert, we've got
any particular industries y'all need.
All of them. Honestly, because we see so many different types of companies come through, and we're trying to remain kind of agnostic in terms of which businesses we serve. So any stage, any industry, product, service, doesn't matter. We're trying to support them. So the more mentors we have, that means the more help that we can provide. And so we've got companies that are, dog washing stations. We've got companies that are climate tech companies. One of the companies that pitched last week was a chocolate. So food and beverage.
Do you get to taste
products.
The chocolate as the mentor?
We did get to taste the chocolate, and it was delicious.
Really?
Couldn't have a ton because it was a digestive health product. So I had an hour drive home. I had to be careful how much chocolate I had, but
That's funny.
it was
Naturally.
delicious.
That's funny.
Well,
But
very
yeah.
cool. And I do like that none of the examples that you mentioned are in our two, biggest sectors, which, obviously are healthcare and any of our, aerospace industries, which are our two biggest industries in St. Tammany Parish. So it's really cool to hear that we're bringing in, a wide variety, if you will.
A lot of diversity. We want to continue to lean into those sectors for sure. We have an event called Noe in your neighborhood. So like Noe is New Orleans Entrepreneur Week. Folks listening, and the next time it comes around, like I will definitely bring you all to it. Encourage everyone, if you're in like any amount of entrepreneurial like stroke of genius in your mind at all, like even if you have one entrepreneurial fiber in your body, go to New Orleans Entrepreneur Week. Happens every year. It's produced by the Idea Village. It's in New Orleans. It's a week-long jazz fest for ideas is what they call it. It's not a boring business convention.
Yeah.
It's like a fully immersive, like live music, super entertaining panel discussions, pitch
Sounds
competitions.
terrible.
Yeah.
Everything.
Gosh.
It's way cool. And so part of it, they work with partners to host events like in different markets. Again, they're trying to do more of a regional thing. And so for the first time, we brought that Noe in your neighborhood outside of the city of New Orleans. We did our first event at Palmettos on the Bayou in Slidell.
Love
Cool.
it.
Beautiful backdrop. Put a little
Gorgeous.
stage in there. It's incredible. Food's delicious. We had some local entrepreneurs who are very successful, who are big in so Paul Ballard with PJ's Coffee,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ballard Brands, Will Boudreaux with Neck Checks, the founder. They came in and sat on a panel discussion and, kind of shared their startup journeys and their stories of how to scale a business from the North Shore, what it took, some of the obstacles that they faced. And then you got to like meet with them and hang out after last year, so that was in 2023. This year we had another one. We did a little AI workshop because every business needs to start to catch themselves up to speed with just basic tools, like helping automate some of the mundane, boring tasks that you get bogged down with.
Yeah.
Did a little workshop on that, had healthcare and IT and software focused industry panel. So like still leaning into like some of our legacy, like economic driver industries that have been a core focus area of St. Tammany and just the North Shore as a whole. But it is really cool to see some of these new ideas come through that are like very, very diverse. I mean, it's literally, we get companies again, like you've got in the same class going through the program together, a startup that's building climate tech to capture wind energy from hurricanes and turn it into fuel to energize communities when their power goes out after a natural disaster.
Nice.
Paired with a
Please
company.
and thank you.
Yeah.
I know.
Where do we sign up for that
They're based out of
investment?
Covington. And so, you get that with a food coaching business, a DIY dog washing, brick and mortar store, chocolates. I mean, it's literally runs the gambit, the type of ideas and businesses that are coming out of here. And I have one of the best jobs in the world to just continually work with people who are passionate all the time.
I
That's
feel the
cool.
same. Yeah. And
Well-
business principles apply to every industry.
Yeah.
It works.
So, I mean, I think that based on what you're saying right now, there's really no excuse for somebody with an idea or who has a small business that to say that they don't have the resources, don't know something. Because if you want to know or get some ideas or just be around other like-minded people, just get involved in St. Tammany Corporation. Because there's
Cenzo's going to get it done.
it's going to
Yeah, we're going to get it done. Again, like totally free to attend all our networking events. Idea Institute comes with a program fee, but we have scholarships. To our partners, we're able to provide those scholarships. So like if you really can't make the fee, it's really just helps us keep the lights on. Like it's not for us to make money off the program. It's just so we can keep it running. Most of it's free. And again, like we're trying to help you de-risk all the time an investment you're going to spend on this business. And failure is core to being an entrepreneur. But what we're trying to help you do is fail a lot faster and fail a lot smaller and learn how to iterate. And maybe, if you were to fail 20 times because you went at it alone, by education, curriculum, and mentorship with experienced entrepreneurs in your industry, you might have only failed 8 times.
Yeah.
And instead of failing and it destroying everything that you saved up for your entire life, you can fail a lot smaller and continue to iterate and grow and ultimately be successful. And sometimes a success story for a business is that, the idea wasn't going to stand the test of time and that you didn't go through this huge process and spend all this time starting this business that ultimately wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And sometimes, failing in that way can be a success.
I fail like 8 times a day. So if you only fail 20 times,
Gotta be more. Yeah.
That man doesn't feel failure. I don't want to hear that.
I don't, but I do fail a lot. And we want you to know that if we can help in any way, supporting it from scholarships to promoting what y'all are doing on our social media accounts,
Mentorship.
we're happy to. I mean, this is the area in which we want to become more known for, especially on west side of the parish, that we can help businesses grow too. Once you've got the resources from St. Tammany Corporation, you're trying to grow, you're going to definitely have things you need to work through from a legal standpoint, but also from an entrepreneur's mindset, you have lawyers that can help you practically understand how it is to grow your business. So we're going to give you things you need to do to make sure you're safe and the way that you're operating in a way that you'll be protected legally, but practically, how can you utilize that idea while also growing to the fullest capacity as you can. So that's the type of people we want to be attracted to, and that's who you're attracting. So whatever you need from us, keep us in the loop.
We got you.
Yeah, no, seriously, thank you a bunch just for the opportunity to come and share our story on the podcast today. I've had a ton of fun talking with y'all even before this, and certainly on the pod today. Giving back as mentors is really what powers this whole thing. We wouldn't be able to provide any level of real service without folks like you taking the time to give back. Definitely looking to co-host some events here in the future, bring all of our entrepreneurs together and our mentors together. We want to get people doing really interesting, cool, innovative stuff that are driven individuals in the same place.
Yeah.
And it's fairly easy from that standpoint because they're going to start to take a hold of a lot of what they're doing. You just have to create those opportunities and those creative collisions. And if you can do that,
let the synergy take it from there.
Yeah, it starts to run itself at a certain point. But, it is powered by partners and mentors. So thank y'all a bunch.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. It was a fun conversation, man. That was cool.